All right. You all ready?
Do we need to turn on?
That's right.
It's all right, I did turn it off. Yeah, it's on now, sorry.
Great. Excellent. All right, well, welcome to Brooklyn School, everyone, and thank you for coming along. And can I say thank you to Liz, the principal, for having us. We've just been in a classroom where we were looking at a teacher, wonderful teacher, explicitly teaching writing to the new curriculum. And there were children doing handwriting, thinking about character development of the book that they were reading. And it's really great to see the new curriculum being taught, handwriting happening in the classroom, and explicit teaching happening in the classroom. I'm here today to talk about some results that we have recently received from last year. Now, these are baseline results that were undertaken last year before our curriculum reforms and all of the reforms have come in place this year. And those results really do confirm that everything we're doing with the curriculum reform and the education reforms that are underway and teaching the basics brilliantly with a focus on reading, writing and maths are exactly what we need to be doing. These results give us a snapshot, if you like, of the before picture, before these results came, before these reforms were put in place. And what they show us, firstly, is that our maths results have stabilised, which is pleasing to see, but there is so much more to do. But in writing, this is the first time last year that we've taken a benchmark against the new curriculum as it was last year. And what that shows us is that 24% of our Year 8 students are at where we need them to be before they go to high school to experience success at high school. And we know that writing is such a crucial tool to be able to experience success at high school. What we also know is that through primary, the writing skills of our young people are not where they need to be. In fact, they start off higher at the beginning of primary than they end up at the end of primary school. And so that's why today I want to tell parents that when I see and when this government sees results like this, like we did with mathematics, like we did with reading, we act. When it came to mathematics, we implemented the Maths Action Plan last year, you'll remember, for this year. When we saw the poor reading results over many decades, that was our literacy guarantee at the election, and that's all being rolled out with force this year. And now we've seen the writing results as well, and we are acting. So today, along with the curriculum that's already in place and the explicit teaching that is happening and all of the resources that are already in place, we're bolstering all that with some additional writing tools to make sure that the young people are armed with the skills and knowledge they need. Now, the first thing is a tool to help teachers explicitly teach the curriculum, to help give students that extra practice they need in writing. It's a tool that will reach up to 120,000 Year 6 to 8 students to help them practice the skills they need to be confident writers. And that will be rolled out from next year. The second tool that we're announcing is a handwriting tool that we've been working on with Helen Walls for some time. She is one of the leading experts in New Zealand around handwriting. Handwriting is one of the most important things that you can do as a young person to build good reading skills and to write confidently. So you don't have to concentrate on how to form an A because you already know how to do it. You can think about actually what you're writing rather than how to write the A or the B. And so that's out now. And thirdly, we're also making sure, and this has been a call from the sector, that those teachers who are at our intermediates and our secondary schools, one teacher from every school is trained in structured literacy. We are still finding that those young people who haven't had the benefits of all of our years of curriculum reform and education reform at high school are still struggling with basic reading, writing and spelling skills. And it's been a call from the sector to be trained in structured literacy at our high schools and our intermediates. And so today's announcement is that we will be training structured literacy for teachers in high schools and intermediates around the country. So my message to parents is clear. We've known for a really long time, in fact for decades, that we have been declining. But when we see these results, we act, and we act quickly. We acted with the literacy guarantee, we acted with the Maths Action Plan, and now we're acting with our plan, Make It Right, our writing action plan, to make sure that all children have the skills and knowledge they need to experience success when they go to high school. And with that, I'm happy to answer all of your questions.
Minister, almost 2/3 of Year 8 students not hitting the benchmark there. What's your timeline for turning that around?
One of the things that we notice with both maths and writing is that there are a vast majority of children, about 60% in both, that are more than a year behind, which is why we are flooding in all of this resource and all of this professional learning and development to help catch them up so they can experience success at high school. And these will be the students who are going to be potentially going into the new qualification as well, which is why we need to wrap around them and give them everything they need. And so we know with the maths trial that we did at the beginning of the year, we saw huge gains in accelerated maths ability after only a term of doing it. This is a slightly different tool. It's not tutoring, it's a practice tool that teachers will use alongside their explicit teaching of the curriculum in the classroom, but it will help young people to practice. So we will hope to see results, and we will be getting data back from those schools in a short period of time.
Were you expecting it to be so low?
I was expecting it to be low, if I'm honest with you. We've been on a decline for such a long time. These results, however, though, are measured against the new curriculum expectations, which are higher. It was the same with mathematics, but it's where children need to be, and it's internationally benchmarked. So it's where children are around the rest of the world expected to be, and it shows us here that we need to do more, and we are.
So it's not a direct comparison to that 2019 figure of 35%?
No, it's really difficult to look between the previous years of the national monitoring data and the new SIPS data, because they have different expectations that they're monitoring against, and so this is the new curriculum. But I would say that it is internationally benchmarked. It is where we know students need to be to experience success at high school, and for us not to have to reduce the level of our NCEA to meet them where they're at, but actually have higher expectations at high school. So we know we need to get there, and that's why we're putting all of this resource in to get children there.
What were they actually tested on, like the actual writing test itself? What were they, what did it contain, I guess?
Well, as you can imagine, it contained writing, and I can give you some examples of what it looked like, but it looked for all different sorts of things, right? Syntax and grammar and spelling and sentence structure and how they use paragraphs and the like. So, but I can give you some examples so you can see exactly what was assessed.
Was it their handwriting as well? That encompassed everything?
It encompassed everything. Yeah.
How much do you think the results are depressed by the fact that the kids hadn't yet been taught this curriculum when they tested? So they knew some of the stuff, but maybe some of it hadn't been explicitly taught to them yet?
I think what it shows against the old curriculum is that things haven't improved. So it's difficult to really look between the way that we were assessing and what the assessments are today, but essentially it shows we haven't gotten any better. And we know this is where we need children to be to experience success at high school, and they're not there. And that's the thing that matters. And I want parents to know that we're doing something about it. Not only in the lower primary with all of the structured literacy, explicit teaching, and all of the decodables and all the amazing resources, but at intermediate now, this targeted surgical support that we're flooding in to intermediate school children and upper primary to give them the wraparound support to experience success at high school.
What about the kids at secondary school who have, it sounds like, actually failed to learn what they needed to, being failed by the system? What's happened there? Is this a forgotten generation? Or?
It's certainly not a forgotten generation under this government, but you're right. Those children have not had the benefit of explicit teaching and structured literacy, and so they're at high school and they are finding it difficult. But we are taking a numbers, names, needs approach. I get a report of exactly how many children at Year 12, for example, are not getting the co-requisite. We know which schools they're in. The ministry are going out and putting individualised plans around those students to help them get the co-requisite. And since they've done that, half of the children have achieved the co-requisite. So we are not taking our eye off the ball. We're making sure that teachers at high schools are trained in structured literacy. That's the big gap we've got at the moment. It's not something I ever thought we would need to do, to teach or to help a secondary school teacher teach a child to read. But that's the gravity of where we're at. And so we're not shying away from it, and we're making sure that all children, no matter where they are, we know who they are and we're investing.
Do you know how many children at secondary schools are still requiring what should have been a primary education?
Look, I can get some figures to you about how many children we've identified who are at Year 12 who are at risk of not getting the co-requisite, which is why we're wrapping around them. So I can get those figures to you.
how much is this costing, what you're announcing today?
Sure. In terms of the teachers who are being trained in structured literacy, it's about $1.5 million. In terms of the writing tool, it will be a few million. I can't go into the exact details. We're going out for RFP at the moment, and so I don't want to upset that process, but we are using existing money within our baselines.
And can you just explain a little bit about tools? Because there's two tools you talked about, and I wasn't sure, is that like guidance for teachers?
Sure. So there's a handwriting tool which is guidance for teachers that was written by Helen Walls, or helped by Helen Walls, who is one of the leading experts in New Zealand on writing. And then the second one is a digital tool to help those children who are in years 6, 7 and 8, and it's more of a practice tool. So it is certainly not a silver bullet that replaces the teacher. The teacher will still be doing their explicit teaching to the year-by-year curriculum, the knowledge-rich curriculum, but in terms of a tool that helps children who are a year behind, who need accelerated learning, there are a number of tools out there that already exist, that schools already use, but many can't afford. So we will be providing that tool to schools.
What do you think is exactly going wrong in schools in terms of, producing better learners and better writers? Because, the 24% of Year 8 students being at or above the curriculum seems remarkably low, especially if they're going into secondary school after that. So what's happening? Where are we failing within the system?
Well, those are the things you will find in my 6-point plan for education reform. It starts with the curriculum. We're being very explicit every single year. This is what must be being taught. And I was just chatting with a teacher in the classroom who said to me, we love the new curriculum. It lays out explicitly what we have to teach each year. It leaves nothing to chance. It's consistent across the country. And we know by the end of year 1, by the end of year 2, by the end of year 3, here is exactly what must be being taught. Nothing is left to chance. Our old curriculum did not have that level of detail and left things to chance. That is one of the most important drivers of success. On top of that, the way that we're teaching, explicit teaching with a teacher with knowledge who explicitly teaches, which you would have seen in that classroom, in the front of the class, explaining, reinforcing, asking questions, getting repetition, going away, practicing it, coming back down to the mat. You seeing this explicit teaching happening in classrooms now, which is a big change. There would have been pockets of it that were happening, but there was quite a different child-centred philosophy that was happening in our education system, and we have shifted the dial further towards explicit teaching of knowledge in the classroom, which is what you just saw.
Minister, it sounds like there's a big turnaround job for all teachers, and they'll be looking at the 1% pay rise and thinking that's just not good enough, especially when the Public Service Minister doesn't seem to know how much they're being paid now. Are you going to look at revisiting this?
We're in the middle of collective bargaining at the moment, so that process has yet to run. I think the comments that we were making around the secondary school bargaining was that we needed them back at the table to be able to negotiate, and that wasn't happening. It wasn't happening in good faith, and I think that the unions were letting the teachers down by not being at the table in a way that was acting in good faith, putting out what they wanted. I know that there has been a bit of a shift, a turnaround in the last few days since there's been some mediation, which is really good to see from the union. But this process is still underway. But of course, teachers want to do the right thing, and they are leading this change in our schools, and I'm immensely grateful, because when you see the shift in results, it's not me, it's them on the ground implementing this change. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't see any shift. And the fact that we've now seen if you look at the maths results, we know we're not seeing any more downward trend. We're seeing an arrest of the decline. That is because of the teachers last year who did an hour a day of reading, writing and maths, which is amazing to see. Now this year they've got the new curriculum, the new teaching practice, the new materials, the new maths books. So it's a huge amount we're asking, and we are still in the middle of that process.
Now Labor says the government has been gaslighting teachers and New Zealanders with that $147,000 figure. Do they have a point?
Look, you'll need to talk to Minister Collins about that. I've always been very clear. The average secondary school teacher earns slightly over $100,000. Of course, there are some teachers who earn more because they have units or additional things that they can get on top of that. I've always been clear in my stand-ups, and I've always been clear with the media.
But she's now become involved in that. Why is she so involved in the bargaining process right now?
Because the PSC is leading the bargaining process, and she is the minister. Well, it was a decision that was taken because it's a huge job. my officials are undertaking an enormous reform package, which I'm here to talk to you about today, to raise achievement and close the equity gap. I need them focused on that task. And then the Public Service Commissioner is undertaking the bargaining. Of course, I get briefed, of course, but Judith Collins is the Minister in charge.
What's your message to teachers striking tomorrow?
Look, my message to the PPTA is please get back to the bargaining table. Cancel the strike. Come back in good faith. Put on the table what are the things that you want to negotiate on, and we will negotiate in good faith. You can't negotiate when you're sitting at the table by yourself, and that's what we've found over the last little while. And it's disappointing that they moved to action so quickly. They didn't put it to their members. They didn't come back to us and say, look, that's not good enough, but here are the important things. That was very disappointing. Moving straight to a strike on behalf of the union, I think was not the right move, and I think they're letting their teachers down. I think teachers, as I've said, want to do the right thing, and they should be represented by a union who's at the table bargaining in good faith. That's what we want.
Do you think teachers are on board with the strike though?
Oh, look, you'll need to talk to teachers about that.
Minister, you mentioned
Just a couple of questions, guys. Sorry.
in a previous answer that there'd been a bit of movement in the bargaining side of things. What's happened there?
We've just had another round, and it's looking more positive.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
I can't talk about what happens in bargaining. All I can say is there've been some more good faith moves on behalf of the PPTA, which is really good to see, and that's as much as I can say.
With regards to the Writing Action Plan, how will that support Māori students, especially those in Kōrero?
Look, there is a tool, Te Ara Tauhu, which exists already. We're also expanding that up by a couple of years as well into Year 9 and Year 10 to really look after those young people who are learning in Māori medium and kura kaupapa, if kura kaupapa are using the tool. Essentially that's around writing and handwriting to give more support. Also for the first time next year, and this has never been done before and it's always been a bugbear of mine, the CIPS results, the Curriculum Insights and Progress Study, has always been mainstream. We've never gone in and actually looked at what is happening in our Rumaki units or our bilingual units. So next year for the first time we'll see a snapshot of that so I know where we need to put resource. Because you've seen obviously when we see results we always go in with support and we always mirror whatever we're doing. Like with the Maths Action Plan, we created everything in Te Reo Māori. With the literacy, we created Rangaranga Reo Ata, all of the structured literacy books. And with writing, when we know where the gaps are, we'll be able to surge more support in. But at this stage we've got some existing tools that we're extending out.
So they're not specifically included in this writing action plan?
They're in the Writing Action Plan. They're in the Writing Action Plan as our broader thing. There's a number of things we're doing that I haven't talked about today, but I mean there's the oral language enrich program we're putting into our ECE centres. There's a number of other bits and pieces around the edges, and that's one of those, Te Ara Tauhu.
Minister, you said achievement's been declining, but doesn't this study and its predecessors show, in fact, kids' scores have been pretty stable over time?
No, they've been declining. We've lost almost 2 years of our 15-year-olds in maths since 2003.
Yeah,
We have been.
But this study of the year 6s and 8s.
It goes back for years and years and years, and it does show a decline. It's stabilised just recently, but over time, a massive decline. In every international study you look at, Pearls, TIMSS, PISA, we used to be top of the world if you go back to the late 90s, and we've had a huge decline. And so now it's the turnaround job.
Thanks,
Great.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.